Lesson 3.1, Fundamentals of Statistics. This is our first lesson in a chapter on statistical reasoning. And our objective for this lesson is to be able to identify population, sample, population parameters, and sample statistics for a given study. Since this is the first lesson in a new unit, let's start by defining several terms. First, let's start by defining statistics. And we're going to define statistics in a couple of different ways. First, statistics is the science of collecting, organizing, and interpreting data. We also define statistics this way. Statistics are the data, the numbers or other pieces of information that describe or summarize something. So we use the word statistics to describe the numbers, the pieces of data that we're going to use. And it also describes the field. So we can say that, that the field of statistics studies statistics. So we use that term in a couple of different ways. All right. The next term that we need to define is population. So the population in a statistical study is the complete set of people or things being studied. So for example, if we've got an election coming up, we want to know how people are going to vote on election day. And so the population is going to be all the voters in the country. Or if we're looking at a state race, all the voters in a state or in a community or an election district. Let's say, for the purposes of this example, that we're looking at a presidential election. So now our population is going to be all the voters in the country. Now, of course, we can't ask all the voters in the country how they're going to vote. So the way that we determine how people are going to vote, or the way that we predict how people are going to vote, is through a sample. The sample is the subset of the population from which the raw data are actually obtained. So, for example, we might ask 1,000 people how they're going to vote. And if we've chosen the sample well, then that sample will be representative of the entire population. And so we can make a pretty good guess as to how everyone will vote based on the sample, the data that we get from that sample. Next is population parameters. So population parameters are specific numbers of interest to researchers that describe certain characteristics of the population. So in our example of the presidential election, the population parameters that we're interested in are who's going to vote for whom in the election. So we want to know how many people are going to vote for the Democrat, how many people are going to vote for the Republican out of the entire population. And we're going to determine that using sample statistics. Sample statistics are numbers describing characteristics of the sample found by consolidating or summarizing the raw data collected from the sample. So the sample statistics in our example would be, what did the 1,000 people that we surveyed actually say? So we take that information that we gathered from the 1,000 people, and we're going to use that to project how everyone in the country will vote, in our entire population. So it's going to be very important, and we're going to talk about this in future lessons. It's going to be very important to choose this sample wisely, because we want to make sure that we're choosing a sample that represents the entire population. Our first example asks us to find the population, sample, population parameters, and sample statistics for this study. We're told that agricultural inspectors measure the levels of residue from 3 pesticides on 25 ears of corn from each of the 104 corn-producing farms in a county. So first, the population is everything that we want to know about. So we want to know about all of the ears of corn in this county. So our population is just that, all ears of corn in the county. So that's our population. Now, of course, we can't test all the ears of corn in the county, so we take a sample, and the sample is the 25 ears of corn from each farm. So there's 104 farms times 25 ears. That's going to be 2,600 total. So our sample is those 2,600 ears of corn that we actually tested. Our population, what we want to know about, is all the ears of corn in the county. Next, population parameters. So the population parameters are the characteristics of the entire population that we're trying to find out. So in this case, we want to know the levels of residue from 3 pesticides for all the ears of corn in the county. And so the population parameters are going to be levels of pesticide residue on all ears of corn in the county. So the population parameters are describing the entire population. And the sample statistics are describing just the sample that we took. So the sample statistics would be the levels of pesticide residue on the sampled ears of corn. Oops. So, the population of this study was all the ears of corn in the county. Since we couldn't look at every ear of corn in the county, we chose a sample by taking 25 ears of corn from each corn-producing farm. And what we wanted to know was how much pesticide was on all the ears of corn in the county. And so we did that by testing each of the ears of corn in our sample and looking at the levels of residue on those ears of corn. So that was our sample statistics, and we're going to use that to represent what's going to happen for all ears of corn in the county.